When I stepped into the glass lobby of Stonewell Infrastructure that morning, I didn't expect the day to change my life forever. The sun poured through the tall windows, glinting off the steel beams of the atrium like it wanted to remind me that I had built this place with my own 2 hands. For 27 years, I had poured myself into this company, late nights, endless projects, highways and bridges across Texas and beyond. Every concrete pillar felt like part of my blood. Tucked under my arm was a gift bag, simple but thoughtful. Inside was a Mont Blanc pen, engraved with the words, "To New Beginnings." It wasn't much, but it was my way of welcoming the new CEO, Vanessa Hale. The board had selected her after Richard Stonewell, the founder, had stepped down for health reasons. I hadn't been thrilled by their choice, a 39-year-old consultant from New York who had never set foot on a construction site in her life, but I believed in respecting the process. Besides, I'd always believed respect earned respect in return. I took the elevator up to the top floor, nodding to receptionists and junior staff who still greeted me with warmth. They knew me as the man who would visit sites at 2 in the morning to check safety harnesses, the man who bought pizza for crews pulling double shifts. My name wasn't on the building, but my sweat was in every corner of it. The executive conference room was already packed. The air buzzed with energy, the kind that comes when a new leader is about to address their kingdom. Vanessa sat at the head of the polished oak table, legs crossed, dressed in a razor-sharp black suit that screamed New York power. Around her were the other board members and senior executives. I cleared my throat softly and approached the table. "Ms. Hale," I said, placing the gift bag in front of her with a polite smile. "Welcome to Stonewell. I thought you might appreciate a small token to mark your first day." Her eyes flicked down at the bag, then back up to me with something colder than indifference. She didn't even open it. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, the corner of her mouth curling into what could only be described as amusement. "Ethan Ward," she said, her voice smooth and sharp. "I've heard quite a lot about you." "Only good things, I hope," I replied, still smiling though I felt a strange unease. She tapped her manicured nails against the table. "Good? I'm not sure that's the word. What I've heard is that you're dependable. Old school. The kind of man who shows up every day, rain or shine, but never asks if the world has moved on without him." A murmur ran around the table. My stomach tightened. Vanessa leaned forward, resting her elbows on the table as though she were about to share a secret. "Dependability has its place, Ethan. But let's be clear, Stonewell doesn't need yesterday's methods anymore. We're streamlining, cutting dead weight, and driving into the future. Which means men like you, men who cling to the past, are simply unnecessary." Her words landed like a hammer blow, right there in front of everyone. I felt the blood rush to my face, but I forced myself to stay calm. "With respect, Ms. Hale, I've given nearly 3 decades to this company. She raised a hand, cutting me off like I was an intern babbling during orientation. "You've been here forever. You've built bridges, you've kissed babies, you've stayed late. Everyone knows the fairy tale of Ethan Ward. But this isn't about loyalty anymore. It's about results. And your results." She smirked. "They belong to another era." Someone at the table chuckled nervously. I couldn't bring myself to look at who. She pushed the gift bag back toward me with a single finger, like it was contaminated. "Take your pen, Mr. Ward. You'll need it to sign your severance papers. Effective immediately, your employment with Stonewell is terminated." The room went utterly still. My throat went dry. "Terminated." The word cracked coming out of my mouth. "Yes," she said casually, like she was discussing the weather. "You've had your time. Now step aside and let the future breathe." For a moment, all I could hear was the pounding of my own heartbeat. The humiliation burned in my chest, hotter than any fire I'd ever worked near. I glanced around the table at men and women I'd mentored, people whose careers I had helped build. Not one of them met my eyes. I swallowed hard, fighting back the urge to slam my fist on the table. But anger wouldn't serve me here. Not yet. I picked up the bag slowly, the Mont Blanc pen rattling inside, and straightened my shoulders. "If that's the decision," I said, my voice even though my insides were trembling, "then I wish you luck, Ms. Hale." Vanessa smirked, clearly pleased by what she thought was my defeat. "Oh, don't worry about me, Mr. Ward. I always land on top." I walked out of that conference room with my dignity intact, but each step felt heavier than the last. When the elevator doors closed, I finally let my hand clench into a fist around the bag. She had humiliated me, stripped me of nearly 3 decades of service in front of everyone. What she didn't know, and what none of them knew, was that just 2 nights before, Richard Stonewell had placed something in my hands that changed everything. Something Vanessa would never see coming. 2 nights before Vanessa Hale tossed me out of the company I had given my life to, I sat across from Richard Stonewell in his Dallas penthouse. The city lights stretched endlessly behind him, neon against the black sky, glowing off the glass walls like a stage curtain. Richard looked older than I'd ever seen him. His once broad shoulders slouched a little, his silver hair thinned more than I remembered, and his breathing carried a faint rattle, as though each inhale had to fight its way into his chest. But his eyes, that sharp, calculating blue, still held the weight of the empire he had built. He poured himself a drink, bourbon on the rocks, though I noticed his hand shook as he set the glass down. He didn't offer me one. Instead, he leaned back in his chair and studied me like a man about to play his last card. "You've been with me from the beginning, Ethan," Richard said, his voice gravelly. "Longer than my ex-wife lasted, longer than some of my bridges are going to stand." He gave a short, dry laugh that quickly faded into a cough. "Tell me something, do you regret it?" I frowned. "Regret what?" "Giving me your best years. You could have gone off and started your own firm, built your own empire. But instead you stayed here. With me. With Stonewell." I looked down at my hands, calloused even after years in executive offices. Memories hit me like flashes, the blistering summers spent on half-paved highways, the winters crouched under scaffolding as freezing winds cut through my jacket, the countless birthdays and anniversaries I'd missed because a bridge pour couldn't wait. "Sometimes," I admitted. "But this company, it's more than concrete and steel to me. It's people. It's the men and women who sweat for it every day. I couldn't walk away from them. So no, I don't regret it." Richard studied me a long moment, then gave a slow nod, as though my answer had confirmed something he already knew. He reached into the drawer of his desk and pulled out a small black box. "Then I need you to have this." He slid the box across the desk toward me. Inside was a watch. An old pocket watch, silver, engraved with his initials. I'd seen him wear it 1,000 times at groundbreaking ceremonies and ribbon cuttings, a lucky charm he never seemed to part with. I picked it up carefully, the metal cool in my hand. "Richard, I can't take this." "You're not taking it," he said. "I'm giving it." This watch was my father's, passed down when he gave me my first loan to start Stonewell. For me, it was a symbol that time is the one thing we can't buy back. And for you, Ethan, it's going to be a reminder that your time is coming. His words hung heavy in the air. I frowned. "I don't understand." He leaned forward, his voice dropping low. "The board thinks they're running this company now. They're wrong. I still hold 46% of the shares. And tonight, I'm signing them over to you." My breath caught in my throat. "What?" "You heard me," Richard said, pulling out a folder thick with legal documents. "You've earned it. More than anyone else. Vanessa Hale, she's a shark in high heels. The board thinks she'll modernize the company, but I see through her. She'll bleed Stonewell dry if no one stops her. And once I'm gone, she'll have free reign." He slid the papers across the desk toward me, the ink fresh, the signatures waiting. "I want you to protect what we built," he said firmly. "Not for me. For the workers. For the legacy. You're the only one I trust to keep this company out of the wrong hands." I stared at the documents, my pulse pounding in my ears. 46%. Enough to make me the majority shareholder. Enough to make me the one person no CEO could ignore. "Richard," my voice cracked and I shook my head. "I don't know if I can." "You can," he said, cutting me off. His tone was sharp, commanding, the same voice that had once convinced city councils to hand him billion-dollar contracts. "You've already proven yourself, Ethan. Decades of sacrifice, loyalty, work that no one else would touch. You bled for this company. Now I'm asking you to protect it. I sat there, staring at the papers, thinking about every long night I'd worked while my wife sat alone at home, about my daughter's high school graduation I'd missed because a bridge in Houston was behind schedule, about the back pain that still gnawed at me from years on sites when I should have been in an office. Sacrifices. All of them. And for what? To be tossed aside like I was nothing, as I would learn just 2 days later. I picked up the pen Richard had set beside the papers and signed my name. My hand barely shook. When it was done, Richard let out a long sigh, like a burden had lifted from him. Good. That's settled. He closed the folder and pushed it aside. Then he pointed at the watch still sitting in my palm. Keep that close. When the time comes, you'll know what to do. We sat in silence for a while after that. The city stretched out below us, alive with movement, cars like rivers of light flowing through the streets. Richard sipped his bourbon and stared at the skyline, his face softening as though he were seeing the ghosts of every skyscraper and bridge he had ever built. You'll hate her at first, he said suddenly, his tone grim. Vanessa. She'll do what she does best, tear down good men to make herself look stronger. But don't rise to her bait. Don't give her the satisfaction. Wait her out. Arrogance always leaves the door open. When she underestimates you, and she will, you'll walk through that door with the watch in your hand, and you'll take back what's yours. I didn't realize then how right he would be. 2 nights later, when Vanessa sneered at me in that boardroom, when she shoved my gift back across the table and fired me in front of my peers, I almost forgot the weight in my pocket. The silver watch, Richard's legacy, ticking softly like a hidden heart. She thought she'd buried me. But time was on my side. The morning after Vanessa Hale threw me out of Stonewell Infrastructure, the headlines were already buzzing. New CEO cuts dead weight. Vanessa Hale takes bold step toward modernization. Industry dinosaur Ethan Ward removed after 27 years. Each headline felt like another nail in a coffin she thought I was already buried in. The worst part wasn't seeing my name dragged through the mud. It was knowing the men and women on the ground, the crews pouring concrete in the September heat, were reading those same words and shaking their heads. I couldn't bring myself to go home right away. Instead, I drove past one of our biggest projects on the outskirts of Dallas, a new suspension bridge that was supposed to be the crown jewel of the company's year. I sat there in my truck, watching from a distance as workers in neon vests moved steel cables into place. My chest tightened. That bridge should have been mine to see through. Instead, Vanessa was probably already holding press conferences, smiling for cameras, talking about her vision while standing on foundations I had poured. It burned. It burned. But Richard's words echoed in my head, don't rise to her bait. Arrogance always leaves the door open. So I waited. 3 days later, I got my first glimpse of what she was turning Stonewell into. A friend of mine from operations, Daniel Harper, called me late at night. His voice was low, nervous, like he was making a prison call. You didn't hear this from me, he whispered, but she's already gutting the teams. Cutting safety budgets, pushing deadlines that aren't possible. She told the board she wants to trim fat. Nathan, she's playing with fire. I rubbed my forehead. The crews won't stand for that. They'll walk. That's just it, he said. She doesn't care. She called you the bleeding heart foreman who got soft. Said you wasted money coddling workers when you should have been saving millions. My jaw clenched. She said that. Worse, Daniel said. Then his voice dropped even lower. I recorded part of the meeting. I'll send it to you. Just don't tell anyone it came from me. I need this job. The next morning, I played the recording in my kitchen, the silver pocket watch Richard had given me ticking softly on the counter beside me. Vanessa's voice came through the speaker, crisp, arrogant, dripping with disdain. Men like Ethan Ward are the reason this company stagnated. Too busy playing hero to the workers, too sentimental about bridges and highways. He treated construction like some noble cause instead of a business. I don't care about legacy, I care about numbers. And if I have to bulldoze the old guard to get them, then so be it. I closed my eyes, listening to her laughter at the end of the clip. So this was who she really was. Not a leader. Not even a visionary. Just another opportunist who thought people were disposable, who confused cruelty for strength. For the first time since she fired me, I didn't feel anger. I felt clarity. That night I sat alone in my study, the watch heavy in my palm. I thought about all the sacrifices I'd made for Stonewell, the nights spent on freezing scaffolds while my daughter blew out birthday candles without me, the anniversaries my wife had quietly swallowed while I worked overtime to meet deadlines, the friends I'd lost to accidents on sites that haunted me in dreams. Every sacrifice had been for something bigger than myself. For the men who depended on steady paychecks, for the families who drove across bridges I helped build, for the name of Stonewell itself. And now Vanessa wanted to erase all of it. I glanced at the folder Richard had given me, the one with my 46% ownership. It sat locked in my desk, untouched since the night I signed it. I had the power to walk into Stonewell tomorrow and crush her. But Richard had been right. It wasn't time. Not yet. A week later, Vanessa's arrogance reached a new peak. I heard from another contact, this time, a young project manager named Marisol who had always looked up to me. She asked me to meet her in a quiet coffee shop on the edge of town. She showed up nervous, clutching her laptop like it was a lifeline. "Mr. Ward," she whispered, "you didn't hear this from me either, but Vanessa's been falsifying progress reports. She's showing the board inflated numbers to make it look like projects are ahead of schedule. But I've been on site. Some of those projects are weeks, maybe months, behind." I sat back, stunned. "She's lying to the board?" Marisol nodded quickly. "And the workers are paying for it. She's forcing overtime, ignoring safety codes. People are exhausted. Someone's going to get hurt." She slid a flash drive across the table. I copied her internal emails. She told us not to bother the board with details. "You'll want to see these." I picked up the flash drive, feeling the weight of it in my pocket. Another piece of her arrogance. Another door she'd left wide open. When I looked back at Marisol, I saw fear in her eyes. She was risking everything to bring me this. "You did the right thing," I told her quietly. "But stay low. Let me handle this." She nodded, relief flooding her face. That night, I sat at my desk again, the watch ticking, the flash drive glowing faintly under the lamp. Piece by piece, Vanessa was writing her own downfall. She just didn't know it. I thought of Richard again, his voice gravelly and tired but full of certainty. "When she underestimates you, and she will, you'll walk through that door with the watch in your hand, and you'll take back what's yours." I leaned back in my chair, staring at the city lights outside my window. She thought she had stripped me of everything, left me powerless, humiliated. But power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it waits. Sometimes it lets arrogance climb higher and higher, until there's nothing left but the fall. And Vanessa Hale was about to fall harder than she ever imagined. The boardroom at Stonewell Infrastructure looked different without me, though I couldn't tell if it was the lighting or my own perspective. The walls still gleamed with polished oak panels, the skyline of Dallas stretched wide beyond the windows, and the long table shone under bright lamps. But the room felt colder, harsher, as though Vanessa Hale's presence alone had stripped it of the soul I had always seen in it. She sat at the head of the table, exuding her usual sharp-edged confidence. Around her were the board members, dressed in their best suits, shuffling papers and sipping coffee, some hiding nervousness, others smug anticipation. They thought today was the day Vanessa cemented her reign. And they thought I was gone for good. I walked into that room in a dark blue suit, the kind of suit you wear when you don't need to shout to be taken seriously. In my vest pocket, heavy against my chest, ticked Richard Stonewell's silver watch. Each second it ticked reminded me that this was the moment I had been waiting for. The murmurs started as soon as they saw me. Whispers rippled down the table like a wave. Vanessa's face hardened, though she quickly recovered, flashing me a smile that carried no warmth. "Well, if it isn't Ethan Ward," she said smoothly, her voice carrying through the room. "Back for a visit? I hope you found some hobbies to keep you busy in retirement." A few board members chuckled. The sound barely touched me. "I thought I'd sit in," I said evenly, sliding into an empty chair halfway down the table. "Old habits die hard." Vanessa leaned forward, her eyes narrowing just slightly. "You no longer have business here, Mr. Ward." Today is a very important meeting, and I'd hate for you to embarrass yourself again. I folded my hands calmly on the table. Then let's not waste time. Why don't you go ahead and tell us all about your vision for the future of Stonewell? Her smirk returned. She thrived on these moments, power on display, control dangling at her fingertips. She stood, clicking her remote, and the wall lit up with a glossy presentation full of graphs and projections. For too long, she began, this company has been shackled by outdated thinking and sentimental leadership. That ended when I took over. Under my direction, we're entering a new era, leaner, faster, more profitable. I've already secured backing from a new majority shareholder who believes in my strategy, and today, we'll be voting on the next phase of Stonewell's transformation. She let that line hang in the air, letting the board digest it. A new majority shareholder. I felt the corners of my mouth twitch in the faintest smile. She really believed her own lies. And who might that be? One of the directors asked. Vanessa gave a polished, rehearsed laugh. All in due time. What matters is that this support secures our future and makes us untouchable. Stonewell is mine to lead, and with the board's approval, we will finally cut ties with outdated figures from the past and step boldly into tomorrow. She glanced at me when she said it, like twisting a knife. I stayed silent until her presentation ended, the room filling with light applause and murmurs of agreement. Vanessa sat back down, smoothing her suit, smugness radiating off her. That was the moment. I reached into my vest pocket and placed the silver watch on the table in front of me. The ticking seemed louder in the silence that followed. Interesting vision, I said quietly. But there's one small problem, Vanessa. You've built your empire on a foundation that doesn't belong to you. Her eyes flicked to the watch, then back to me. Excuse me? I slid a folder from my briefcase and opened it. Inside were the signed documents Richard Stonewell had handed me 2 weeks earlier. I pushed them across the table, the signatures glinting under the lights. 2 nights before Richard stepped down, he transferred 46% of Stonewell's shares to me. Effective immediately. Which means, I paused, letting the weight of the moment settle, I'm the majority shareholder. Not your mystery backer. Not the board. Me. The room went dead quiet. Vanessa's smirk faltered for the first time since I'd known her. She grabbed the papers, flipping through them desperately, her eyes darting to the legal seals and Richard's unmistakable signature. This can't be right, she stammered. The board was assured. The board was misled, I interrupted calmly. By you. But that ends today. One of the older directors leaned forward, adjusting his glasses as he read the documents. His face paled. It's legitimate, he said softly. These filings are binding. Murmurs broke out around the table again, this time tinged with shock instead of smugness. I kept my tone even, almost gentle. You called me dead weight, Vanessa? Said my time had passed. But time has a way of humbling arrogance. I tapped the silver watch with my finger. And now, your time is up. Her face twisted, the calm mask cracking as she looked around the table for support. You can't just waltz in here and take over. I'm the seal. Not for long, I said. Effective immediately, as majority shareholder, I call for a vote to remove Vanessa Hale from her position as Chief Executive Officer of Stonewell Infrastructure. The directors exchanged glances. Some looked relieved, others hesitant, but no one rushed to her defense. One by one, hands rose around the table. The motion carried. Vanessa's face went red, her composure shattered. You think you've won? You're just an old man clinging to the past. This company will crumble under you. I stood, sliding the watch back into my pocket. Maybe. Or maybe it will remember what it was built on: loyalty, sacrifice, and integrity. Not arrogance. Not lies. I turned to leave, but paused at the door, my voice steady. Richard trusted me with Stonewell because he knew men like you come and go. But legacies, they endure. You mistook kindness for weakness, Vanessa. That was your mistake. And now, it's the last one you'll ever make here. The room was silent behind me as I walked out, the ticking of the watch in my pocket the only sound I needed. Vanessa Hale had tried to bury me. But instead, she had buried herself by her own arrogance. And me? I didn't need revenge delivered in fire and fury. All it took was time. If you enjoyed this revenge story, make sure to hit that like button. It really helps more people find these stories. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next tale of betrayal, karma, and pro-revenge. And I want to hear from you. What would you have done in his place? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the quietest revenge is the most powerful of all.